Travis Wayne Goodsell. Well, no fan was short-lived. Getting back in hottie territory until next week, when maybe we'll get cold again. We'll see. On Monday, right after conference, the church came out with a video declaring Jesus lives. They referred to John chapter 20 only to quote it, but then didn't even bother to follow the text. So you know how Hollywood makes a movie of a book and they don't bother to follow the book, and the readers of the book are all upset with the movie? The church pulled that stunt. Because she's supposed to run to Simon Peter. He then goes back to the tomb, finds out, oh my God, he's not here. And now you can read it for yourself. And so then Mary is there, and she finds the two angels, and then Jesus says, "Hey wife, what's up? What you crying for this time?" Jesus said unto her, "Woman, why weepest thou?" You know, feminists get upset with this, but they don't understand that Jesus was her wife. And Christians don't want to believe it, despite the Gospel of Jesus' Wife. Is that what it's called? Huh. Okay. Yeah, the Gospel of Jesus' Wife is a papyrus fragment with Coptic text that includes the words, "Jesus said to them, my wife." The text received widespread attention when first publicized in 2012 for the implication that some early Christians believed Jesus was married. And it's right in the Gospels. When he says woman, it means she's had children. She's supposed to be a virgin. I have my vlog here. I got to get out of the way. But there's been others. Did they talk about them? So yeah, they go over scientific testing, analysis of text. Yeah, it's legitimate because you can't put your Christian bias in the way. And so the text, they have the word for word. We're supposed to trust that the translation is accurate. My mother gave me life, the disciples said to Jesus. Deny. Mary is not, ? Worthy of it? Jesus said to them, my wife, she is able to be my disciple. Let wicked people swell up. As for me, I am with her in order to an image. It's a broken fragment, obviously. And so there's another one. Where Jesus kisses Mary. 2017. Really? Somebody else knows about that. Good for you guys. EvidenceUnseen.com. Was Jesus married to Mary Magdalene? Yes. Yes, she was. Or he was. We have 2 references of Jesus kissing Mary, and no references to Jesus being married at all. Let's see what you got to say. The Gospel of Philip, the kiss is the other one here. The kiss of Jesus to Mary Magdalene in the Gospel of Philip. I'll get to this in a minute and explain. The church, or the Catholic Church, calls all of these fake documents, or pseudepigrapha, frauds. And so this is evidence unseen. They've got a shield thing going on. Claim here Mary Magdalene is clinging to Jesus. In this culture, men and women wouldn't relate like this. Also in Luke 7:36-39. A woman who is a sinner or a prostitute lets down her hair and kisses Jesus' feet, thought to be Mary Magdalene, not expensive of a pope. This was scandalous behavior to see between a woman and rabbi in this culture. Yes, it's because they were married. Moreover, critics argue that the Gospel of Philip, so they talk about it too, 63 verses 33-36, and the Gospel of Mary. Also, chapter 17, verses 10-18 and 21, or no, 17:10 and 18:21. Also mention Jesus kissing Mary often. If she were my wife, I'd be kissing her often. In addition, it was customary for a Jewish rabbi to be married. Yeah, they're not Catholic priests. Not single at this time. This perspective was popularly put forth by Dan. No, it's not. And so here's his response. Many Bible believers have no theological objection with Jesus being married. God created marriage, and he called it good. God created man and woman naked. Everybody calls it bad, just like the serpent told them that it was bad to be naked. God uses marriage as an illustration, so I guess he's okay with Jesus being married. But he would have had kids. Are you okay with kids? Are you? Are you? Do you go over kids? No, I'm not seeing kids. I'm seeing marriage all over the place, and the justification for marriage. I'm not seeing kids. If he's 33 years old when he dies, he would have had at least 18 to 33 years to have kids. Where are the kids? So, yes. There are many plain and precious scriptures gone. Not just from our latter-day scriptures. The monogamy chapter. Where'd that one go, Brigham? Framing Joseph Smith for 132, are ya? And so, let's give you background history before... I already went over this, didn't I? They start with a quote from verse 1. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. And then she goes in, and then she comes back out, and sees a light, and then runs clear across town, stops at the cross, treating it as if it's a literal history, like the Book of Mormon, and then goes up to a room where they're all gathered, and he lives, speaking in the Aramaic tongue. all supposed to go, oh, it's so true! Yay! There's what's called a straw man argument, in which Mormons have turned that in, and Christians likewise, but the church did it to Joseph Smith. They turned Joseph Smith Christian. They turned Amen into Jesus. And Mormons have fallen for it. And the church, they're obviously perpetuating this lie. You know, the first vision, it's an abomination. And yet, Mormons are going around the world, it's no longer an abomination. It's real. So yes, Constantine, 325 CE. And so what happened prior to? Well, during the Roman period, which was about 63 BCE, when it began, taking over from the Greeks, you have the Romans being very bloodthirsty, very controlling and domineering. The Jews, under the Maccabean revolt, had taken back their temple and did away with the pig sacrifice. You can be a big pig too. And Hanukkah ensued. And so the Romans come in and again dominate and take over. And so what you have is a result, more Maccabean revolters, but this time they're not called Maccabees. It's not the family of the Maccabees. And you have individuals trying to rally people and rally an army to go up against the Romans and kick them out and push them out, reclaim the temple, reclaim their land. And they all fail. All of them fail. And so what you see with these gospel stories, as they are now called, as kata used to mean downward motion, Catholic, downward motion of the whole. Hilarious! And so they had to redefine kata to mean according to. According to the whole. According to Mark, Matthew, Luke, John. So they're never really called gospels. They were just books according to. And the author was never the actual name of the author. It was somebody using a particular name, hoping to get attention. And so people were writing like crazy their own version of apocalyptic literature. And yes, there's a number of them that used the Roman period time frame. There were those who used the origin of mankind and the earth and the heavens, Genesis, to claim Joseph of Egypt is the Christ. Because Genesis is a completely separate book. Whether it was the same author, doesn't matter. The book of Genesis ends with Joseph saving his family, the house of Israel, in Egypt. He's the Christ. All set up for that. And Moses for Exodus? Yeah. That's why the Jews call all 5 books the 5 books of Moses. The Torah. Because he's their Christ. But in Deuteronomy, they know that there will be a future man like Moses. because these were written during the apocalyptic period of literature during the Roman period. And so you can see the linguistic tells of the Roman period in the text. Like Sodom. The men want to have sex with men at their temple. Yeah, Roman period, Caligula stuff. And so Judges was Samson, for example. So all the different books, even Daniel, it's apocalyptic literature. That one was a little more designed about convincing Jews not to give in to the Roman period assimilation, as they've already been Hellenized by the Greek assimilation, and Babylonian assimilation, as they became fully Babylonianized, even though the book of Daniel is about don't do it, stay strong to your roots as Egyptians. Everything, the language, their holy days, the calendar system, everything got changed to Babylonian. So yes, the Sabbath day, that's Babylon. Before that, in Egypt, every day you worship. Temples were open every day. It wasn't just once a week. And so when you see that, and the creation story, and the number 7 in other parts, the flood story, everybody's confused. Oh, there must be 2 documents merged together. You have pairs of animals, and then you have 7 pairs. So it must be different documents. No, it's Babylonian influence. Got to get rid of all that and go back to the Ogdod story of the Egyptians. And so each congregation, as you do see, they go to different congregations. John in Revelation, he first talks to the different churches, goes through all of them. Some get rewarded, some get condemned. But those were actual congregations. They were originally called therapeutae. They weren't Christians. But unless you take Christian in the sense of messianic believers of the latter-day Messiah, apocalyptic Messiah, and so each of the therapeutae congregations had a teacher and 12 disciples. And thus why it's written that way, is hearkening back to those times. And they would go to the different congregations and preach. Therapeutae means healers. And so, Jesus in his stories is a healer. Because of that, he's a therapeutae teacher. So the Dead Sea community, the Qumran community, they talk about a teacher. They were a part of that. And that's the oldest text that we have of the Bible. And so, after the destruction of the temple in 72 CE, as the messiahs who tried to rise up to save the Jews and free themselves from the Romans failed. Masada is the most popular one of the Messiah who failed on that one. And you might have heard about Bar Kokhba. He was another failed Messiah to save the Jews. And it just simply means a Savior. Jesus. Yah of salvation. To save the Jews. And it comes from Jeremiah. chapter 23, and it starts in verse 5. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, and I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. It shall be called the Lord our righteousness. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. That's Moses. They're referring to Deuteronomy chapter 18. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. That's the keys of Moses given to Joseph Smith in the Kirtland Temple. Section 110. And the church won't focus on that because Peter has the keys. No. And so that's what all these authors were doing. They were trying to rally the people into a hope of salvation. It's prophesied, and so all these apocalyptic stories, like Disney movies, were being written to try to encourage the Jews that hope will come, we will be saved, there will be one rising up to eventually save us. And this is a mortal person. This isn't some Trinity Jesus of Constantine. And so each group have their own apocalyptic literature story with the name of their particular Messiah. And you even have those who had Hercules and Perseus. And if you're wondering, really? Is there any justification for it in, like, maybe the book of Revelation? Because they both flew on Pegasus, right? A flying space horse. Yeah, Revelation chapter 19, guys. Verse 11, and there are the underground Mormons who know this as the white horse prophecy. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, are the moments we too can share. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. This is Pegasus, and it's Hercules, and it's Perseus, and here it's Jesus. Although it actually is the sun, which means Amen, the sun god of the Egyptians. But I went over this with you. And so all these different books are different for a reason. They're prophecies. You can read in the Book of Mormon. It says, thus saith the prophet such and such that this would happen. And thus saith the prophet such and such that this would happen. And I found those. Did you know that? Let me bring up that scripture for you. Zenos. Yeah, 1 Nephi chapter 19. So it comes from the brass plates. So it's in Egyptian documents. We should expect to find them in the Egyptian documents. I told our new Elders Quorum president, back when I was attending church and allowed to attend church, that I found all these scriptures in the Egyptian documents. It's awesome, isn't it? He just had he was speechless. It was like, do I believe you? It's just unbelievable. But yeah, let's see, the God of our fathers who were led out of Egypt, out of bondage, that's Moses, and also were preserved in the wilderness by him, and the God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob yieldeth himself, according to the words of the angel, as a man into the hands of wicked men, to be lifted up according to the words of Zenock, and to be crucified according to the words of Neum, to be buried in a sepulchre according to the words of Zenos. And which he spake concerning 3 days of darkness. All of these are from the Egyptians, which should be given a sign of his death unto those who should inhabit the isles of the sea. April 2024, 2 more years. That's Samson, the final day of darkness, his death. Keep going over this with you guys, and and so all of these different apocalyptic congregations were claiming they were the one true apocalyptic congregation, and that everybody else was wrong, and their future apocalyptic Messiah is the one true apocalyptic Messiah. And anybody who disagreed with them were excommunicated. Even if you didn't even belong to their congregation as a bishop, not his congregation, you were excommunicated. And so bishops would excommunicate other bishops and excommunicate other people's members just because they're wrong and they're right, and so they have authority to excommunicate other people. And it was going back and forth in a contentious way, and when a member disagreed with the bishop, sometimes he would form his own congregation with his own apocalyptic literature. And so you can see the chaos, and Joseph Smith talks about this too. It's amazing. History repeating itself with the clay shattering of feet from Daniel of the Christian Church of Constantine. First came the division of orthodoxy, and then the Reformation movement. I believe it was Luther that started that. And all the while, you have the Roman Empire trying to genocidally assassinate everyone, just wipe them off the face of the earth. And they are winning, but they can never exterminate them completely. And there were periods of time where they were purposely, these groups were purposely running into battle to be a martyr because they get elevated as a saint to the people. I'm gonna die for Jesus. And so I'm gonna die for Hercules, or Samson, Joseph of Egypt, Moses. And so, yeah, under Constantine, he devised an insidious plot whereby he convinced all these different groups that he saw a sign in the heavens, the Cairo. And thus is the little hand sign that the popes and other Christians give, or is seen in paintings and such. And he then held a council in Nicaea, the Nicene Council, with what became the Nicene Creed. And they were forced to come if they wanted funding for their congregations. Kind of extorted. And he forced them to unite under one creed, one scripture, as it was supposed to be. As you can tell, they chose 4. And one of them was considered anathema. Nonetheless, it's in there. And they could not agree on who the Christ would be. Everybody was dead set that theirs was the right one. And the nature and character of him was the right one. And so Constantine was fed up. It's hot. It's in the summertime. And so he created a new word that has no meaning. other than not real. That's a straw man, Jesus. It's not a real entity. He just chose Jesus, Yah of salvation, to be the Christ. And thus, the apocalyptic literature became historical documents. I refer you to Galaxy Quest. Literally, TV shows are thought to have been historical documents by the space aliens who built a ship patterned after the show. And they come to Earth to get Tim Allen to negotiate a peace treaty with the enemy aliens who are trying to slaughter them. Let's get out of here before one of them kills Guy. Hilarious. And thus began the abomination that Joseph Smith refers to in the first vision. Because Constantine, after making this decision, then took a tour of Jerusalem and Israel, and said, that's where he was born, that's the tomb, that's the Garden of Gethsemane, that's Golgotha, etc. He went all out to make this Jesus character he created as real to be historical and real. And so when you read Matthew, you're confused because there's so many errors. There are multiple births listed. Joseph, rather than Jesus, is a descendant of David. Jesus isn't even qualified. And so, yeah, you can see that all these stories had different intentions, and likewise for the resurrection. And it's interesting that the church chose John rather than the other three, because John is the only place where Jesus says, touch me not, woman. But the church screwed up the text. They refer to it in quote for verse 1, but then they have her doing Hollywood Liberty, what's it called? I can't remember. Director's Liberties, whatever. But, yeah, woman, why weepest thou? She's his wife. He's a mortal man who had been married, he has kids, but in the story it's apocalyptic. And so when he says, touch me not, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. The whole concept of the cross and ascension has to do with a star date in the future. The death date, 8 April 2024. The wedding marriage supper of the Lamb, Revelation 19. Joseph Smith knows this, Doctrine and Covenants 58. It's at the temple, the Zion temple. We have conquered the great and abominable church and have made it to Zion, and we're living peacefully and happily now, as the rest of the world is at war. Only those who don't want to be at war will come to Zion. It will be the only place that will have peace, safety, and refuge. And the great and abominable church doesn't want it to exist. They want to control, enslave, and murder the saints. And so this ascension part is the throne. The wedding feast is the coronation ceremony. He has restored Joseph Smith's church, conquering the great and abominable church. 19 July 1840 refers to the Last Supper, which is the Last Supper of the Lamb, the wedding feast at the temple. 8 April 2024. And Joseph Smith refers to it to expose who is going to betray him and murder him. It also talks about the destruction of the great and abominable church in that same talk. He exposes the founder and prophesies also that they will be destroyed. And why didn't Brigham Young publish that as a Doctrine and Covenants section? He was the president of the 12 apostles, just like in the Last Supper story. But yeah, that's the whole cross is the death sign, because the tau signifies a mark or a sign. And interestingly enough, on 8 April 2024, the solar eclipse will leave a mark over America, with the one that occurred the first day of darkness, 21 August, that's next year. That's number 2, 21st of August, 2017. Yeah, guess where Joseph Smith said Zion is in 19 July 1840. Yep, right there at the crossroads. He knows. Church doesn't want you to know. And so, as they keep claiming that it's all literal history, embracing Constantine's actions, all they're doing is choosing one of the bishops who were rejected by Constantine, because the Constantine God is Trinity, but the Mormon or current church Jesus is half mortal, half immortal. So Perses and Hercules, those were rejected. Catholic Church calls them pagan, heathen. But that's the Mormon Jesus that they're currently claiming. And it's none. It's apocalyptic literature. And so all of these are Egyptian symbolisms talking about latter-day apocalyptic prophecies. Because this Jesus doesn't save the Jews, but Christians all claim his death, resurrection, and ascension saves mankind. That's because in true meaning is that wickedness will be conquered with the fall of the great and abominable church, and they make it to Zion, rebuild the temple. Christians don't want a temple, I guess. The Jews are waiting for a temple, but they're split. Do they have to wait for their man like Moses to come and tell them to build it, or do they build it and then he will come? You know, the Field of Dreams conundrum. So, there you have the correct story of the resurrection, which I'll be going over again apparently for next week, because the 17th is the Sunday school lesson for Easter during the Old Testament time.